Michigan State escapes a slight scare from Minnesota on Thursday night. Also, we're going to take a quick look ahead at the Maryland game coming up on Sunday. Michigan State hires Demetrice Martin, and then Michigan State Spartan Radio's own Dalton Shettler joins the show. We talk football, we talk basketball, we talk women's basketball too. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. You ever want to reach out? LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com is the best place to find us. Please rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. And let's just get right into the show here because it's a busy first segment before being joined by Dalton Shettler of the Spartan Sport Radio Network. That got a little dicey there on Thursday night in a game where Michigan State was projected to win comfortably. And in the end, on the scoreboard, they still did. They won 76-66 against the Minnesota Gophers. But oh my God, that felt very reminiscent of the Indiana State game earlier this season. By that, I mean Michigan State, comfortable-ish lead at halftime. You could see or sense that they're going to pull away here and that things are going to end correctly for the Michigan State Spartans. But just like the Indiana State game, holy crap, these Gophers could not stop hitting shots, Mitchell specifically. And by the time you're halfway through the second half, you're wondering if the Gophers are ever going to miss another shot ever again for the rest of their lives, because it wasn't for lack of defense from Michigan State. Minnesota was just hitting some really great, really tough shots. Again, just like the Indiana State game, eventually the boys did pull away. And for the 500th Big Ten game that Tom Izzo coached in, it ended in a victory, but oh my goodness gracious, that got a little dicey there. Now, who came to the rescue for Michigan State down the stretch when the game was tied at 62-all with a little more than 5 minutes left to go in the night? Tyson Walker. Tyson Walker was the hero. 21 points, 3 steals, but it wasn't just 21 points. It was 10 of Michigan State's last 12 points on the night. He just took the game in his own hands and ended it. So it was half that. And that just like the Indiana State game, I'm going to keep going back to that game. The Sycamores missed a lot of their last threes in that game, just how Minnesota missed, I believe it was last 7 3-point attempts they had. So the combination of Minnesota missing, finally, their shots to end the game, and then the heroics of Tyson Walker saying, all right, guys, fine, it's closing time. Everyone relax. Yeah, that was big. And for a nice win, too, because what have we been talking about all week? Is that Michigan State is set for a run here, both because, hey, they're playing good. You know, sure, they have lost a few games, but they're playing better in those losses. And also, this is going to be a favorable schedule for Michigan State. If you win these games, they're not really going to impress the committee, but at least you can build up your record, where if you lose these games, like that would have been a bad loss, and that may have dinged Michigan State on their tournament resume. But fear not, Michigan State got it done. So we pointed out Tyson Walker. We also have to point out, yet again, Malik Hall, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. And we're going to pull out a tweet from Solja, a great Michigan State basketball follow on Twitter. He tweeted out, Malik Hall is averaging 14.5 points per game over his last 6 games with a true shooting percentage of 62.2% from the field and 62.5% from deep. This stretch includes the Northwestern game where he notched 0 points. So he even took a vacation in one of those games in the last 6 games, and he's still averaging 14.5 points per game. And that 3-point ball starting to heat up a little bit for Malik Hall too. So you love to see that. Hey, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but we've been experiencing some great stretches from Malik Hall. So I just wanted to point that out really quick. So as Michigan State, they hit the road one more time this Sunday before a nice little stretch here, because it will be a break between the Maryland game and the Wisconsin game. They won't play that game until next Friday night. So a bye-ish week, so to speak, after this Maryland game. But let's talk about Maryland for a little bit here. Maryland, they are 11-7 so far this season with some bad losses. This isn't like the Michigan State kind of record where they have good losses. Now, Maryland lost to Davidson earlier this year, UAB earlier this year. They lost to Indiana, which the Hoosiers this year are not good. And they also lost narrowly at Minnesota. Obviously, we just saw that Minnesota is a little better than they were last year. Like, this isn't the classic Minnesota team where they're just getting pasted by everyone. But still, you would hope to beat them even if it is on the road. However, Maryland is turning a corner here because their last 3 games include a win versus Michigan, which it's not going to impress a lot of people. A road win at Illinois. Now, that is going to impress a ton of people. They won that game pretty handily, too, by 9 points. And then a 3-point loss to Northwestern. And unfortunately, us Michigan State fans know all too well that that would have been cool to, at least play Northwestern close on the road. So that is what we're looking at for Maryland. And it's going to be a lot of the same players we are familiar with. Guys like Jameer Young, that great point guard. Julian Reese, 6'9" Julian Reese, and 6'8" Dante Scott. My God, I feel like it's the same Maryland roster over and over and over again, dating back to like 2015. This is just the same Maryland team that we've already haven't seen. So what do they do? Well, it's a really good defensive team. They're 32nd in the country at adjusted defensive efficiency. They hold their opponents to just 45% effective field goal percentage. But on the flip side, they're not that great of a shooting team either. They shoot 47% in effective field goal percentage. That is 289th best in the country. They don't shoot the three-point ball that well. They actually are 346th in the country at shooting the three-point ball. So kind of looking like a mirror image of the Rutgers game because, well, Rutgers was really, really good defensively, and well, they couldn't throw the ball in the ocean if their toes were standing so far on the beach that their toes were touching the water. So it's going to be a tough game. We're going to see how well Michigan State's recent offensive burst can travel on the road because it's never easy to hit the road in the Big Ten, as we've been learning the last few weeks. So that's what we have to look forward to noon on Sunday. The computers over at barttorvik.com have Michigan State favored by 5.3 points. So take that for what you will. It'll be an interesting game. Michigan State needs a road win in the worst way possible. I'm more nervous for this game than I am the Lions game at 3 o'clock that day. So that really says a lot how important this game can be for Michigan State. If they lose, it's not going to tank their season, but my God, they just got to get the monkey off their back of losing on the road. I think we can all agree on that. Really quick, before we chat with our guy Dalton Shettler here in a second, we got to talk about this Demetrice Martin hire because this hire happened a few days ago. Sorry it's taken this long to get to it. We've just had a few other conversations like Locked On Gophers the other day. So, sorry. This is our thoughts on Demetrice Martin and the 10th assistant coach on Jonathan Smith's staff. He will be the cornerbacks coach. So it's going to be 2 coaches in the secondary, Blue Adams being the safeties coach, and then Demetrice Martin as the cornerbacks coach, also the passing defense coordinator. Now, this guy is seasoned. Not only was he an all Big Ten player back in his heyday in East Lansing, as many of you know, former player at Michigan State. So he's coming home. But he's been a DB coach since 2001. Most recently, he was at Oregon for 2 seasons. Before that, he was at Colorado for 2 seasons. Before that, he was at Arizona for 2 seasons. Oregon, last year, they led the conference in opponent passing yards per game at Oregon. And that's really impressive because they also saw the 6th most pass attempts against them in the nation. So they saw a lot of teams throwing the ball all over the yard against them. Hey, you know what? For the most part, there were a lot of incomplete passes, and they really limited the explosive plays too, which is something big under Joe Rossi's system here, is to just limit the explosive plays. So I'll say that again, led the conference in opponent passing yards per game while seeing some of the most pass attempts against them, not just in their own conference in the Pac-12, but in the nation. So, yeah, I mean, we like the hire. It's hard to see a hire for an assistant coach and just think, oh, that sucks. By and large, a lot of these are wait and sees. We're not going to completely get an accurate grade until maybe 2 seasons in. But yeah, overall, bringing the guy home, he's got over 2 decades of experience, Power 5 experience. And hey, if this is some of your flavor that you like, he's going to bring some West Coast chops over. And there's no shortage of that on this staff. So I don't think many people are going to look at that and say, oh my God, finally, this guy can recruit in the West Coast. Like, Michigan State has that in spades so far, but still, just another notch to put in the belt right there. So we will be joined by Dalton Shettler here in a quick second. We're talking football. We're talking basketball. We're also going to hit on women's basketball as well, a sport that we have neglected here, but it's a fun team this year over in Robin Freilic's first year. But first, need to talk your ear off about FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL regular season is long gone, but hey, as you guys already know, it's a beautiful slate of divisional playoff games coming up. So get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's right. Don't stress the spread. Don't worry about laying the points. And don't even lose sleep on whether you're going to win or lose your bet. Because if it's your first bet on FanDuel, for $5, you get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. Go ahead and make yourself a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Get off the sidelines and go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. It's FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Folks, far too long since we've had this gentleman on Locked On Spartans. It's Dalton Shettler of MSU Radio. He is the voice of women's basketball. Also does some great work with the football team too. And it's kind of why it's been so long, because I want to have Dalton on here and there throughout the season. But that got interesting, didn't it, that whole football season? Dalton, how on earth are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back with you. And yeah, it was a year, but it's time to move the page. Things are looking bright in the future, and a lot of good things moving forward with Jonathan Smith.
Hear, hear. No, that's a hard agree on that one. My first question is a question maybe people don't even care about, but I'm just curious myself because you're in the radio industry. Of course, you work alongside Michigan State. You're here to talk about all the great things happening or like fire up the fan base, especially when it comes to football. But those last 2 months, a little bit of a rocky road. We don't have to rehash every single thing that happened. But Dalton, how are you able to do that? Just hop on the airwaves and just talk about Michigan State. Is that the hardest it will ever get for you, you think? Or was it all not that bad in the end?
Well, the thing is, too, with Michigan State University, there's been some adversity over the last handful of years. There's been different situations arise where you've kind of had to manage some of these things. But much to specifically this last football season, I think what you do is, because of the position that it is, and you kind of mentioned you work alongside Michigan State University and you're broadcasting those games, it gives you, for whatever reason, from that vantage point, an opportunity to see the good in things. And it gives you, because look, obviously all that took place, but there were still 10 games to go, and you had players that had to buy in for whatever reason. And so you observe what that reason is, what their why is, what that motivation is. You see why Harlan Barnett is kind of helping batch down things and try to keep things afloat. And I think you use that as inspiration. Like you find the good in that. And so when Harlan Barnett and the Spartans beat Nebraska, it is kind of euphoric at Spartan Stadium because you understand the adversity and you understand that's kind of what propelled them to even keep this thing going throughout the season. So I think you, as corny as that might say, you always kind of find the good in things. And I think that's what this season allowed us to do. It allowed you to get behind a Spartan dog and Harlan Barnett. It allowed you to get behind a bunch of guys that said, we're not leaving, we're staying here and sticking this out.
Now I feel a little extra bad that it has been this long since we've had you on here. That's the ray of sunshine that was missing on this show. We do our best. And you do fantastic work, truly. Because I'm listening to a few of these pregame shows like late November. It's like, wow, he's still bringing it over there. Like Dalton is a pro. Look at him go, man. So
appreciate it.
But you did mention the upcoming future for Michigan State football, and I asked beforehand if you were able to talk with Jonathan Smith, but not able yet. That guy's incredibly busy. Not a lot of people have been able to talk to him, but what have you just seen kind of from the outside-ish looking in? You're still on the inside, but the outside-in-ish looking in. What's got you fired up about this regime early on in tenure?
I think, and you mentioned he is busy because he's working through the transfer portal. He's rounding out that coaching staff, and things look great from the outside and seeing the moves and the additions that have been made so far. But I think the biggest thing is, and I mentioned, we actually broadcasted the introductory press conference when he was announced as the head coach from Michigan State, and listened to him talk. And look, I said it then. Everybody wins press conference day. Like nobody really ever leaves a loser. But I think the things that you took away from it was the principles and values that he holds in high regard. A lot of it sounded very D'Antonio-esque, and Mark D'Antonio was a couple rows back there in the audience. And I think that's the big thing I took away was, look, I mean, we know Michigan State, and you know how Mark D'Antonio got it done. It was faith driven. It was blue collar. It was maximizing potential. And I think that's where you go. And I think what Jonathan's done early is lay the foundation to allow an ecosystem or an environment like that to thrive. And again, like you listen to him, and one of the questions was, what's a mantra that you bring from Oregon State? And he said, low ego, high output. And like, those are the kinds of things that I think Michigan State football just needs to get back to, is very much the D'Antonio type era. And again, the Mark D'Antonio era provided us 3 Big Ten titles, however many memories, a college football playoff appearance. I think it just needs to get back to that type of culture. And I think Jonathan Smith kind of has that.
No, I agree. Yeah, we are seeing a lot of mirror images from the early D'Antonio days, no question. And we're going to get into women's basketball here in a hot second, because obviously you are very well versed in all things Michigan State women's basketball. But at the start of the year, you got to step in for the Alcorn State game, and Coen Carr had a highlight where he jumped so high his head scraped the Magic Johnson banner in the rafters. And you were on the call for that. Like, is he the most electric player that you've been able to call a game for? I mean, just from a raw entertainment standpoint.
100%. I just did like a quick scan through the Rolodex in my head, and it's Coen Carr. I mean, it's the uncanny ability to just take off. I mean, we're talking about somebody, because there's some high flyers right throughout history, but one that's built like a semi truck. Like, it's, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. And he's got a vertical of 48 inches. And every time you see him breaking to the basket with the ball or without the ball, like, your eyes instantly gravitate. I think a lot of people that have seen him in person can attest to that. Like, wherever you're sitting, and the ball may be over there, but once you see Carr in that 55 jersey starting to make its way to the basket, it just attracts you there. And so Coen Carr, he left us a highlight dunk. And it's funny, Matt, too, because I've gotten so many questions of, did you have that line ready? No, I just absolutely, that was my gut reaction to Coen Carr doing something that humans should not be able to do. And that was a good time. That was a lot of fun.
No, I love that you mentioned that. Just whenever he touches the ball, like, it's go time. At Little Caesars Arena, when he got that great outlet pass, and he's on the free throw line about to windmill dunk, right when he caught it, I can't say what I actually said on air, but I screamed even before he took off. Something, yeah. And then even when you're just watching at home, now it's even before he even gets the ball. Like, if you're watching the game and you see him backdoor cut as someone slashing to the lane, I'm just in my couch nodding, showtime. Like, it's about to happen. So, oh God.
And you know what I love too, Matt, is there's so many players that are very talented and are just God gifted with that kind of athleticism. But what I find fascinating about Coen Carr, of course, he does have some areas to develop and still improve.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I find fascinating how hard he works. I mean, him working the offensive glass, the way he dives on the floor, the things he does, it feels like those are the kinds of things that a lot of players of his capability in high school, they're like, I don't really need to do that because I'm still going to drop 40 by dunking on everybody's heads throughout this game. I don't really need to do that stuff. But Coen Carr seems to have immersed himself in that layer. And I think that is maybe one of the wrinkles that's going to make Coen Carr uber special by the time he's done.
And we're going to talk about another special thing going on in Breslin Center. The women's basketball team, we thought it'd be a little bit of a rebuild with Robin Freilich. Maybe not. But first, before we get to that, Dalton, I'm so sorry I got to send you to the bench because I need to talk the people's ears off about Gametime, the greatest ticketing app in the game, folks. If you don't believe me, just go try it yourself. This is the easiest app out there and also so great at saving you money, whether it's a Michigan State basketball game coming up or, hey, if you're brave enough to get to Ford Field this weekend and head to the divisional round playoff game, go start checking the ticket prices right now. They have great flash deals throughout the week, whether it's a sporting event, comedy show, concert, theatrical performance. If it's a ticketed event, Hey, Game Time's going to have some great flash deals for that event. Or if you're a last-minute person, as you're walking up to the stadium or the theater, open up your Game Time app, check out their last-minute deals. They are truly second to none. Also, hey, it's just so easy to get your ticket zapped to your phone. It's just 2 taps. Boom, boom, bang, straight to your phone. You don't want to rummage through all your email, wondering, oh my God, when are the tickets going to get to my phone? No, they're just sent right there. It is so painless with Game Time. So what are you waiting for out there? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. That's all one word for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Let's get the voice of MSU women's basketball, Dalton Shettler, back onto the show here, because this is a sport, admittedly, that we have not given enough shine to on the show here so far. And what better person to drag on here than Dalton Shettler, the man who has been broadcasting MSU's 13-4 season so far. If you look at bracketology, and this was before their big win over Northwestern last night, they're squarely in as a 9 seed. Dalton, is this at all a surprise right now, or is this kind of something that was expected in Robin Freilic's first year at Michigan State?
I definitely think you lean surprise, and this what kind of makes this season so special too. Because look, it's a surprise for a couple of reasons. A, you get a new coach in Robin Freilich, and you don't know how long maybe that system or that vision takes to gel and click. It's a tough thing to project. But then you start looking at the year, right? And heading in, Michigan State women's basketball is going to be an undersized team. It just didn't have a lot of post presence. You get in a couple weeks into the year, Isa Alexander, your starting 5, is out for the season. She suffers an injury. Gabby Elliott, one of the leading rebounders on this squad, suffers an injury. She's done for the season. You keep going through. You get to Mary Meng, the 6'5" freshman who you threw in there in the post. She's out for the year with an injury. Wow. So immediately, Robin Freilich was almost dizzied by just like the adversity of injuries. And I've asked her before, I was like, have you ever seen anything like this? And she was pretty snapped back. She said, no. Never. This is one of a kind in my career. So, I mean, there has been so much adversity to what was already an undersized team, just losing all of its post players. And so there's a player rotation now of about 7. Sometimes it extends to 8, but 7 players. And these 7 players are undersized, but they're battling the best in the Big Ten Conference. And I think that's one of the aspects that makes this really, really fun and unique to watch, is that this is a team that is really short on depth, short physically, and they've been able to kind of rally around with each other and pull off this year where they're 13-4, 3-3 in the Big Ten, playing some of the very best in the conference. They went down to the wire with Iowa already, lost by just 5 points at Ohio State. I mean, this team has been playing hard and fun, and this is, I use the word fun there. I think that's the biggest thing. Folks, if you have not watched this Michigan State women's basketball team yet, give it a chance, because I think you'll love just the fun that exudes from this squad. I mean, this is a group that Robin Freilich has kind of stripped down to the studs and just reintroduced the idea of the innocence of the game of basketball. Like, hey, you got involved, right? Because you were a kid and you loved the game. Let's be kids. Let's have fun. Let's just have a good time with it. And throughout the game, you'll see players smiling. Last night, the officials were going to the monitor to review a situation, and 2 players, Jocelyn Tate and Dee Dee Hageman, were having a dance-off. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, and that's just the energy. They play serious. They play hard. They want to win, but they're there to have a good time. And it's this infectious energy that you can feel through the bleachers. You can feel through the radio. You can feel through the TV. It's something that you want to cling on to, because this is a group that's just having fun. There's a joy in the game. And honestly, it welcomes you to have fun with them too.
I love that, because it kind of just seems like a different energy in Breslin Center when you're watching the women's team. I haven't been able to go to actually see them in person yet this year, but and without talking, down on Susie Merchant and like how things ended there, because obviously she did great things for Michigan State basketball. But is that fair to say that there's just a new energy in the air? I mean, I know that's what you kind of ended on, but that is what's going on inside of Breslin Center.
I would say in some respects, and you're right, because like Susie did a lot of great things, but Robin has found a way to kind of click in with some of these players, and just I suppose maybe that is the best way to say it. Just refresh or reintroduce the innocence of the game, and again, I mean, these players are taking it from the bare core of just having fun with it. And to your point, I mean, Susie did a lot of great things, but I think that energy has been has absolutely been a factor this season.
And also, just about the fun. I mean, 88.4 points per game. I believe that is second in the conference. Actually, that's a little higher since they scored 91 against Northwestern. But it's lightning, I mean, on the court with this team. But on that, there is one team above them in the Big Ten. It's Iowa. And Dalton, here comes a really stupid question. You ready for this one? This could be one of my worst I've had so far this year. You mentioned that they just narrowly lost to Iowa. Of course, Caitlin Clark, I'm sure many people saw the highlight. She buries a last-second three-pointer to beat Michigan State. That was a road game against one of the best teams in the country, against, in my opinion, the most electric college basketball player, men or women, in the whole nation. So here's the dumb question, Dalton. Is that loss Michigan State's best game? There's 13 wins to choose from, but is that game playing that close this early into Robin Freilic's tenure here, is it the best game, or is there another one that kind of sticks out to you?
I don't think it's a dumb question. I would point to, you're welcome. I would point to the game before that was a road trip to Penn State. And here's what's interesting, Matt. So the non-conference, it got a little heated up down in Cancun, playing a Creighton team that was in the top 25. But for the most part, the non-conference was a little lackluster, you could say. So you're still trying to figure out what exactly you are. Sure, you're winning a lot of games. Sure, you're scoring 90-some points a game. But what are you exactly? And then that road game at Penn State was the second Big Ten game of the year. It was the first one since that revamp, after the holiday break. And Penn State is a program that got ranked this year for the first time in 25 years. And so this is a good Penn State team. Michigan State went on the road, beat them 98-87, scored 57 points in the first half. And I think that energized this group with some confidence. But then to your point, I think really, maybe you're right. It's Michigan State going to Iowa City and showing itself that it could hang with the number 4 team in the country. And we used this line on the broadcast following when Maryland came to town, because look, the beginning of this Big Ten schedule has just been brutal for Michigan State. It is front loaded. But they came back to play Maryland. And we mentioned in the interview to Robin, it seems rare that a team loses a game and gains more confidence. But I think that's what happened with Michigan State at Iowa. Because, look, you're right. Caitlin Clark went off. She had 40 points. She had the game winner. It took her 34 shots. Yes. The team had 67 shots. Caitlin Clark took more than half of them. And Mo Joyner deserves all the credit in the world for guarding her as well as she did. But I think that proved to the team, they said, you know what? We didn't even play our best basketball. We had some silly turnovers. We had some self-inflicted mistakes. And we probably should have just beaten Caitlin Clark, who might be the best women's basketball player of all time, and the number 4 Iowa Hawkeyes. So I think you're right. I think that game kind of recalibrated something where then they come back to East Lansing. They beat Maryland. They go on the road to Ohio State. Didn't play well at Ohio State. Didn't shoot well, I should say. Only 5 threes. This is a team that makes 10 threes a game. But probably would have beaten Ohio State at Ohio State had they shot up to their average. I think you're right. I think it recalibrated a confidence level in the squad.
And there are 2 great opportunities for fans to go check out the team next week at Breslin Center. On Wednesday, they play Purdue, and then Saturday, they play Michigan. That game's at noon.
That's right.
Next Saturday, the 27th. So just want to highlight that. But Dalton, you're the man. I mean, I can't have it be, 3 months before I have you back on the show. I'm kicking myself, man, because, I mean, look, it's always a blast talking with you. So really, really do appreciate you, my man. I
have a great time, too. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Gang, until next time, which will be the weekend, we're going to do a little bit of recruiting talk with Brian Smith and, of course, recap the Michigan State basketball game at Maryland before I suffer a heart attack during the Lions game on Sunday, next Sunday could be our last show. But, hey, who's to say, gang, until next time, enjoy yourself. Have a great weekend. Love you all. Go Green.